Are you ready to unleash your full potential and become unstoppable in your success and leadership?
Welcome to the Unleashed and Unstoppable podcast, where we provide powerful insights and strategies for coaches, corporate leaders, and entrepreneurs. I'm Alexanne Carter.
And I'm Carol Register, and we're certified master neurocoaches who are passionate about helping you overcome your limiting beliefs and optimize your performance.
Each week, we'll be sharing actionable tips and strategies using neuroscience, from interviews with industry experts to solo episodes to help you lead a life of power, purpose, and possibility on your own terms.
Join our community of like-minded individuals. Hit subscribe now and let's be unleashed and unstoppable together. Hey, I have a client who is making big changes and her brain has freaked the frick out, Alex. I'm telling you, the breakdown happens before the breakthrough, and boy, do we want to give up. And I face those things. So what it's looked like is becoming very controlling, not recognizing the brain resistance that's coming up. And so thinking that the old way, the old path is the best way again. Because when you don't see what's coming up for you, all of a sudden that comfort zone's looking really great, right? Even though it's not in alignment with your vision and it's keeping you stuck and playing small. But it's that saying of, oh, I didn't really know what I had until I moved away from it. Yeah.
I didn't know what I had. Sorry, what was that again, Carol? Because I think it's important that the listener taps into that, right? One of the things that we love to talk about on the podcast is really like the thoughts that are going in, and it's the subconscious thoughts.
Yeah.
We don't always capture. I mean, I think that's one really cool thing about you and I, Carol, like when we're talking to our clients, even when we're talking to each other, we can capture those subconscious thoughts that we're not even truly aware of. So repeat that one more time because I really want the listener to grasp onto that.
Yeah.
Belief.
Yeah, my friend, listen. It's so true. How often have you thought, well, I know I have, the grass is always greener on the other side, but often it can be that way going backwards. And we're like, oh, I didn't really know what I had. I didn't really appreciate it while I had it. So I'm going back there.
Right. And again, I love that. That's the brain resistance that we're talking about, right? Like
so true.
You've got a powerful vision, you're looking forward, and then the brain starts to do its sneaky ways of keeping you safe, of like, oh, it was actually, it was safer. It was safer back there, right? And so your brain wants to put up some resistance and all of those thoughts. I think, what was the thing I was catching myself saying the other day? When I started to notice even myself with some brain resistance, I just kept saying to myself, my brain is doing its job trying to keep me safe. And this is just a sign that I'm leveling up.
Yeah.
And it's just doing its job. It's just doing its job.
This is fear.
This is just fear creeping in, right? Because as you said, your client is going through a lot of changes. This is a very normal thing that the brain goes into. And I know we want to actually do a deep dive a little bit more in a future episode about this.
Yes.
But just to be aware of that, listener, right? Like when you're up to doing big things, when you're going through life changes, the brain is going to want to,
pull you back
and have this
because
fear.
It's uncomfortable and it's scary. And she's changing jobs right now, and the new job's like, nothing's going to work here. This is not going to happen. And so what we end up doing, and to its furthest extreme, you definitely want to halt this pattern. You want to halt this thought pattern. But the thought pattern, what happens is we make permanent decisions in temporary situations. And if you've ever lost somebody that you love, like I did recently, that's exactly what was happening. They made a very permanent decision in a temporary situation. Our brains are going to get uncomfortable when we grow. But the cool thing is that the tools that Alex and I present and use are the ways to turn your brain around, and not just your brain, your mind, your body, your spirit, because our subconscious is housed in our body. And our feelings and emotions are housed in our bodies. So when we think about a thought and the feeling, those feelings are what's circulating in our body, right? So we're
Hmm.
total integrated beings. So important to remember that. And when you're in a situation of resistance and you haven't received the tools to learn how to put your system to work for you, then you end up often making permanent decisions based on temporary situations or based on
Hmm.
circumstances rather than the belief in your vision. And the exciting part is the belief in your vision is just as real as your current circumstances.
Yeah.
But you've got to train your system to know that and then put it to work for you so that it's not taking you backwards. It's like what do we say? Two steps forward, one
I was
step
I
back.
was just about
Yeah.
to say that, right? It's two steps forward and one step back,
Or
right? You
vice
want to
versa, one step forward, two steps back
and
sometimes.
what we want to like invite you today, listener, is to really continuously take a step forward. I think that,
Yeah.
I mean, me personally, I can say that that is like my current reality, right? Is that I just continuously remind myself to continue to be in motion forward, right? Like things are gonna come up,
Yeah.
right? The brain is gonna there's gonna be the resistance, things are gonna come up. But when you are really grounded in that vision, if you really are grounded in what you want to create,
Yeah.
right, you are naturally going to experience resistance. It's just the way
Yeah.
life is, it's the way that the universe is, it's the way the brain, you know. I don't like saying like testing, but sometimes it really is like your vision
Yeah.
is being tested in a way. And so by
Yeah.
staying in that fluidity of motion, I've found that a lot recently. By staying in the fluidity of motion, of just continuously moving it forward.
Mhm.
And I mean, we have an episode recently talking about it is done, right? It's the same concept of like, if you know it's already done, you just continues to stay in motion. And when things occur, you just, you can move them in fluidly, because you
Yeah.
know that this is okay. This is just part of this process. But when we go to that default of panic and
Yeah.
making these big decisions in these temporary situations, right? Then it's like the worst outcome on the other side of that, because of like who we are in that more of that the fight, flight, or freeze, right? That reactive mode in those moments. So I'd love to know. I'm sure the listener is probably also curious about this too, Carol. How did you coach your client through this, right? Because I'm sure this is something that a lot of the you're listening, that you're up against, right? This is just again a normal process of what goes on in the brain when we're going through a lot of big changes.
Yeah.
And I mean, talk about changes. We're changing through seasons right now, right? And things like that. So how did you really coach your client? Because of course, now that the client sounds like made that
Yeah.
big decision in a temporary situation, to how to how to you coach to navigate that, sorry, and then
Yeah.
to support the listener, like when you encounter these next like this yourself in those situations,
Yeah.
to avoid getting into that. And it's kind of a default, right? So again, it's a
Mhm.
safety thing of making a permanent decision in these temporary situations.
I love the question because one of the things that we often do when we are feeling threatened, right,
Mm,
is that
yeah.
we become very controlling because that
Mm-hmm.
gives us a sense of safety. It's a false sense of safety. And, we've talked about being in control as a leader versus being controlling and trying to manage
Mm-hmm.
every outcome, which isn't really possible. And then what you start to attract isn't what you want. And then,
Mm-hmm.
the cycle of breakdown continues. So there's a couple of things in our coaching, Alex. You know that it's about empowerment. Within you, you have the answers within you. So it's asking the right questions, releasing that choice to you, even if you make a choice that, maybe I, as a coach, see is not in the best alignment for you. But if you truly have the answers within you, you are going to recognize that.
Mm-hmm.
It is going to
Mm-hmm.
come to you. And you always have the freedom and power to do what you want. So, a part of the questions are, what is it that you want? Go back to your why. Why is fuel when there's breakdown? And this is why we talk about the fact that you should have a why that's bigger than yourself. that's about your legacy, about the people you love, about the impact that you want to make. And it acts as fuel in the situation when there's this confluence of events and your brain's going, what's going on? No, stop, right? That we all experience. And often our bodies, we can get physically tired, we can get sick, we can get headaches if we're not taking the time to pause and remind ourselves that we are very powerful, that everything that we desire is entirely possible. And like you said, Alex, taking that one step forward, how do you walk 1,000 miles? One step at a time. And maybe you come up on a boulder in the road, or the path is blocked with animals or something. So looking at temporary situations through that lens. It's a temporary situation. I can continue to break things down into small bits and move forward with gratitude. Gratitude is a huge anxiety and resistance blocker. So these are the things that I started to speak about, and reminding that here's what brain resistance looks like, because sometimes we don't recognize it when we're in it. We have to learn how to catch it in order to turn it around and put the tools we have to work for us.
You said something a little bit a second ago, Carol, talked about the animals in the road, right?
Yeah.
And as you said that, I was thinking about what I had just said about, staying in motion.
Yeah.
And what hit me when you talked about that is that, so let's talk about the animals in the road for a second. And you hear me staying in motion. Well, if you're in a vehicle and the animals are blocking, you might think, well, staying in motion is like keep moving the car forward. Well, now the animals are blocking it. What hit me in that, and what hit me in that when I actually visualized it, I'm a very visual person, right? Is like, hold on a second. Sometimes the pause is the motion. I'm not saying about pausing to stop, to detour. I'm saying recognizing, okay, here is the vision. I'm going to take a second. My motion is I'm going to take a second to pause, to reground myself. So I'm not in this state of panic. So I'm not in the space of reactivity. So I'm not in a space of even shutdown.
Yeah.
It's just acknowledging the feeling, right? Our bodies, you're always seeing this, Carol, right? Is like we're all interconnected. And so, yes, logically, maybe our brain wants to move forward and taking an action, right? And I mean, talk about productivity, right? But our body in that moment is actually seeking for that moment to pause. And I would say the animals in the road is again, that communication from the universe, communicating to you saying, here, my invitation right now is to take a second, is to take that moment. So you're not making that decision that's out of alignment with this temporary situation.
Yeah.
It hit me there because I've noticed that a lot with myself these last couple of weeks of just making decisions, right? There's a lot of decisions that get to be made when you're, moving countries and when big changes, right? And so it's just for myself being reminded of taking those intentional pauses to get regrounded, because things can start to move very, very quickly. And it's very easy to get overwhelmed with things, especially if you feel like it's all coming at you. And so it'll just continuously reground in the vision, the intention of a mechanism, right? Like, what is the intention?
Keeps you out of the overwhelm and the burnout. And, it's so interesting. It's the Pareto principle in action we were talking about today, because instead of having 80% of your activities produce 20% of your results, it's learning how to have 20% of your activities produce 80% of your results. And that is that productive pause. Yeah. Anyway, I know we're doing a short, quick episode today to remind everybody. We just wanted to give you some quick information in case you're having a freak out, to know that everything is going to be okay. You have tools available to you. Take that pause, ground, sit in gratitude, think what's coming up for you. That's very powerful. And then, use the tools that we've talked about here to be able to walk in your true power. You are way powerful. So,
and say, check in with yourself, right? Check in with yourself when you're about to make that decision. I mean, making this decision from a very grounded place and from vision, or am I making this decision because I feel the pressure? I feel I feel that. I feel the energy. I feel
Yeah.
this angst, right?
I'm
Like
in
just
fear. Yeah.
yeah, just check in, right? Like that's where that power of that pause comes in, that moment to really check in with yourself to see, where am I making this decision from, so that
Yeah.
you feel empowered. As you said, Carol, you really empowered your client and supported them in getting back grounded in vision and not
Yeah.
creating that decision from that fear, that scarcity. And yeah, like I would say, save this episode for those moments, because we know that those moments
Yes.
arrive, I'm sure, I mean, depending on where you're at in life and journeys, but these moments occur, sometimes very often. So
Yeah. Very true.
bookmark this episode, that so that when those moments do occur, you can take a listen. You can hear our reminders of getting grounded in that space. And we will
Yeah.
see you next Thursday on our next episode.
Ciao for now.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Unleashed Unstoppable podcast with your hosts, Alexandra Carter and Carol Register.
If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review, and subscribe.
That's all for this episode, Wildly Ambitious Leaders. See you next week.